Just when we thought Celtic were back on track after a big win during midweek against Feyenoord, we're going to put in an absolute shocker, against Hearts at Celtic Park this afternoon. This is Tino with the Final Whistle Show. I'm joined here by Asim. Asim, you might have better Saturday nights than this one. What's your initial take in the game?
Scunnered, absolutely scunnered. We were just talking offline. The atmosphere in the stadium was pretty toxic throughout. I thought I was angry last week after Kilmarnock, but that was worse. Like, we've combined the first 45 at McDermott Park, the second 45 at Kelly, and just put on a full 90 of an absolute turgid display, right from the off. Right now, there's so much obviously that we'll digest and discuss, but the problems just run even deeper than probably we imagined. A lot of us have spoke about how we've seen this coming. Then we spoke about little potential turning points, whether it was the second half at St Johnstone or the Hibs game or the Feyenoord game the other day. But I think what the players and management have consistently shown is just how inconsistent we are, and I don't think we are currently capable of putting a run together. No domestic game feels like a sure thing. That today was, I feel like I'm repeating myself the last couple of weeks, but I said it after Motherwell, said it after first half St Johnstone. We've all said it after Kelly last weekend, but it's as bad as we've been for years, and it's now happening game after game. And being at the stadium today, Tino, that was, like I say, there was chance in the second half. There was people kind of approaching the director's box and board. Stewards had to get involved. And there was a dejection with about 20 minutes to go, a resignation that we're not getting back in this game. And when have you felt like that in a home game at Celtic Park chasing a goal? So, look, a lot to uncover, but just my initial reaction is, just a mixture of anger, dejection, and quite scunnered at the disconnect right now.
Yeah, there's serious anger doing the rounds, amongst supporters. That's whether you're in the stadium or following online or whatever you're doing. There's that anger from fans. What I'm seeing from players is more galling. It looks like acceptance of getting beat 2-0. It was 2-0 from an early stage in the game, and you're thinking, from a fan's point of view, there's 70-odd minutes to claw this back. And at no point at all, did you think Celtic were going to get back in this one today?
Yeah, that's what I said. I was saying to my dad. That's rare, because normally you look and you're like, right, okay, a goal at this stage and we're back in it. We came out in the second half and you're thinking, right, an early goal again, but we didn't really create much. There was just a sense of, like you say, the atmosphere was pretty toxic, but guaranteed if we'd got a goal, things, we might have rallied, but it just didn't seem like that, even just within the players. You know what it is right now as well? There's two things. Obviously, we're short of confidence, but there's a real lack of quality. So when you combine the two, it's a recipe for disaster, because what you sometimes have seen in the past is you've got the quality players that might just be having an off game, but someone can produce a bit of magic, whether it was Jota or, we can rattle through the amount of players that we've lost in terms of even just leadership and experience. But you're looking around that pitch today and you're like, who can we count on? We've got Mikey Johnston playing years after we've all kind of said now that, I know you spoke before and we were all willing to kind of will him on this time and take his chance. But that first 45, you've got the likes of Palmer, who we've all been, praising, rightfully so. He's had a good start to his career, but these guys again, when we really needed them today, nobody showed up. It's galling, and like I say, I think it's just a lack of leadership on the pitch, and the manager doesn't escape blame. I've been quite hesitant to blame Rodgers too much, because I do feel that the problems run far deeper. When you look at the team that finished that game today, it's an absolute shambles from where we were a year ago. But he has to carry the can. Like, the players do not look like they're playing for him. It doesn't look like he's got ideas how to change things up. So from top to bottom at the moment, Tino, there's something quite wrong.
That's it, and I don't think any of us have got the answers right now, and that's the challenge. And I think I'm the same. I'm a huge Brendan Rodgers fan. I was pleased that he came back. Listen, the way he left wasn't ideal, but I made my peace with the fact that it's football, it's the modern game. Ange left as well. That's what happens. Guys move on for different opportunities, different money. But I've always believed that he's a talented coach, but we're just not seeing it this time around. And as much as I'm a fan, and I'm not making the calls at this stage for him to be replaced, any version of Celtic should be set up in such a way and motivated in such a way that you beat Hearts at home, you beat Kelly away, you beat St Johnstone at home, which we failed to do, and various other results that haven't gone our way so far this season. I gave the damning stat, I think 2 shows ago now, that Brendan Rodgers so far, and we're now 25 games into his reign, hasn't won 3 games consecutively as Celtic manager this time around. Just not acceptable. I'll defend him, but that is not acceptable.
Yeah, like I've kind of put a few tweets out there, and I'm trying to caveat it by saying he carries the can. It's not, as you say, it's not acceptable. Like I mentioned earlier, like I look at that squad and we've just not given them the tools. The squad isn't what it should be. But as you say, to not win 3 domestic games, not domestic, but 3 consecutive games. I think I read a stat we're only maybe a point better off than we were in the COVID season, which I know people have mentioned the comparisons with. But yeah, it's the trajectory, because if you actually look at it, if you obviously we're just not long in from, well, I'm not long in from the game, and you've just watched it there, so you try to keep a bit of balance and you try not to make it too knee jerk. But this has been coming, and if now is not the time to voice our concerns, then it'll be too late, down the line. This is what, 3 weeks ago we were 8 points clear. For it now to be a case of, should they win their game in hand, we're a point behind, that's unacceptable. It's only heading one direction. And the worry is, how do we see a fix? Because he doesn't seem to be getting the best out of the players. Granted, we've all said it seems to be a lack of quality and there's issues with recruitment, but we're stuck with these players for now. We've got another 3 or 4 big games coming up. So if this carries on, and we've got no encouragement to suggest it doesn't, then it does have to then go to the manager, because we have to get someone who's going to be able to get the best out of these players, and he currently doesn't seem to be able to do that. He doesn't know who his best lineup is. It's like a lucky dip in terms of who we're playing in midfield every week, and it's not because people are giving him a headache and it's because of good performances. It's because literally no one's stepping up to the plate. The centre-back situation, we've got 7 million worth of players that we bought in the summer, both of them not in the squad again today. Something's just wrong, and it's, I mentioned earlier that if it's the case that Rodgers has been hoodwinked again in terms of what he was promised in the summer, and he's kind of not down tools, but his passive nature and his kind of demeanour suggests, some people are saying that he doesn't want to be here, or has something changed from what he was initially promised to what's happened? And Rodgers being the way he is, I think we'll soon find out if that is the case. I think we'll soon find out, because it looks like it's going to get to like Groundhog Day, where it's all going to come to a head in the next wee while, whether it's December the 30th in the Derby game, or just in January transfer window. But it just feels like nobody's really sure what's going on behind the scenes at the moment, and from top to bottom, things are a mess.
Yeah, the inconsistency of team selection is such a worry, because in Brendan Rodgers' defence, he's not had his luck with injuries. So he signs 2 centre-halves, they get injured right away, all that stuff that happened. He signs Marco Tilio, who's clearly not ready to play football. He loses Rio Hatate, one of their most influential players, with Maeda missing for a bit there. And we'll get to what he put in today, by the way, just shortly. Carter Vickers has had these troubles. Awata seemed to potentially be the answer. He gets injured. So listen, there's circumstances there beyond Rodgers' control, and I'll rightfully give him that defence. But some of the starting 11s are baffling. You get a guy, in Lager Bielka that hasn't had a good time at Celtic. He manages to score the winner in a Champions League game in midweek. He'll have been sky high on Wednesday night. I'm sure he trained well. I'm sure he was feeling good about himself. Not even in the squad today. Mike Navrocki, most expensive summer signing, not even in the squad. But Kwon's in the squad. We'll bring in Kwon from absolutely nowhere. Kwon's not, I don't know if Kwon's made a competitive squad for Celtic since signing. It's baffling. And I think what's happening, and you've seen it with substitutions today, Brendan Rodgers, 50 years of age, is a very experienced coach, been around the block, dealt with a lot of scenarios, lots of ups, downs, and lefts and rights, knows what football is and how it works. But rolling the dice at Bernabei up at left wing instead of Louis Palmer for about 10 minutes at one point in the second half, was that the answer? But, is this, I don't know how long Rodgers has been a coach, 25 years, early to mid-20s he went into coaching, 25 years of coaching experience, and that's the shot we'll put on Bernabei, and we'll see what happens. It's baffling.
Yeah. In isolation, Scales and Carter Vickers would be the choice that everyone would have picked today for centre-back pairing. It's the fact that, like you said, he's not even, Lager Bielka's not even on the bench. It's more for me what it speaks to a point of what's going on behind the scenes. It's given mixed messages to players. It's, some of the comments he's made about Lagerbielke and Mike Naroki, Mikey Johnston, Bernabe, who's not been in the picture but then suddenly comes on. It's just very mixed. It's very confused, and I think that's why even it seems like the players, people are saying, "Oh, he's lost the dressing room." I don't know about all that, but it just seems like there's not a connect right now. There doesn't seem to be a harmony. You've seen players having a go at each other today in the second half. It looked like, I think McGregor was having a go at Maida at one point. O'Reilly was having a go at Palma at one point. Things that we've just not seen for a couple of years. It just doesn't seem like everything is in unison at the moment. And I don't know if, like you say, the players. I'm hesitant to say they're not playing for him, because I do think a lot of them just aren't great quality at the moment. But added to the mixed messages and like you say, like players like Bernabe being nowhere to be seen, then comes in Kwon suddenly on the bench today, Lagerbielke and Naroki both not on the bench. It must be even behind the scenes that the players are confused, and then that shows in their performances. It shows in their lack of confidence on the pitch. Basics were just going wrong today. We can't cross a ball. The passing, the defending at the first goal. There's just so many things not right at the moment, and like I say, I've been hesitant to criticise the manager because I look at that squad. People keep saying, "Oh, look, he's turned a treble-winning squad into this." I think there needs to be a realisation that we've lost a lot of quality from that Ange's team over the course of the last couple of windows, not just in the summer, but even if you look at January with Giacomakis, Juranovic, Moy, Starfelt, Jota. It's a lot of quality and a lot of experience that's coming out of that team, and none of it's been replaced at all. So again, I try and cut some slack in that sense and try and be balanced. But you cannot escape from the fact that the football's been boring to watch. We've looked uninspired pretty much all season. We got away with it, I feel, in the early part because we won the Derby game and they were in shambles. But this has been coming and the trajectory's only heading one way. So something needs to happen. But the worry is, like you said, we don't seem to have the answers.
That's the thing. You can spot patterns in football in various ways, whether it's, a player's decline, an aging player or whatever. You can follow the data and see what that tells you. And in a similar way, you can see it in terms of performance levels, chances created, and ultimately wins and points on the board. That's the easiest stat to look at. And Celtic just don't seem able at this moment in time to put that run together. And in fact, what we've seen in the last 3-4 weeks is the opposite. We're trending down the way. And that's something that needs addressed immediately if we're going to hold on to this title. And we know how important this title is, Asim, in terms of the new Champions League format for next year and the finances that brings to Celtic. And let's be frank about it, it's so important because if we're not picking up that bounty, we know the Rangers are, and that's criminal if we let that happen. What I'll do just before we kick on to some more details, just to thank everyone, first of all, who's joining us at the moment on the YouTube Live. Would very much encourage anybody's comments, thoughts, feedback, suggestions, all that kind of stuff. And if in between all your rage, you could be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Makes a big difference to what we are doing. So, Asim, to bring it back to the team selection, I think we all kind of thought he would stick with Scales and Carter Vickers at the back. Mikey Johnson gets his chance up front again. Now, anyone that listens to what we do knows that I've been a real vocal supporter of Mikey Johnson. I think he's a talented lad. Brendan Rodgers, Ange Postecoglou, Neil Lennon all think he's a talented lad. But what he gave in the first 45 minutes today, I used the word unacceptable for Brendan Rodgers. I need to use it for Mikey Johnson there. You cannot put that in. When you're only going to get so many opportunities. He's now had, 4 starts in 5 games, something like that. You can't give us that. You can't give us that and expect to have a future at Celtic.
No. I've kind of thought his time was done, but at the same time, I'm looking at the other options, and in recent weeks, I feel like he's been the best option just because how bad the others have been. And also at times, I do think he has looked sharp. He's came on, he's looked direct. His issue has been his end product. And today, like that first half, just nothing was coming off for him. But you say some of his crossing, his pass, everything was just like if you've been given a run of, like you say, 5 or 6 games, and this is what his output's been, then I think we all just need to accept it's not going to work out for him, because unacceptable is exactly how I would describe that. You've got to be doing better than that. You've got to take your opportunity. You've got to step up when the team needs you. And he's not a young player anymore. Brendan said that in one of his interviews a couple of weeks back. He's one of the kind of not more senior players, but he's at an age where we've got quite a young squad, and he's what, 24, 23, 24 now, I think. So for me, that's that performance there. I would be surprised if we see him start another game between now and January. I don't know. We've not really got many other options. Maida didn't do any better when he came on, but we'll possibly excuse the fact he's been out for so long. But that was a pretty shambolic performance from him as well. Nobody for me gets pass marks. I thought, to be fair, I thought Scales. I'm not seeing the goal back. I know we'll touch on that as well, but I thought in general Scales was fine, and McGregor I know gets a lot of criticism, but again I feel like he's having to coach the rest of the boys around him. I feel like he's having to do the job of and I know the manager kind of said similar. McGregor's been off form, and we can all agree with that, but I still feel like he's the only one in there that's a leader. He's the only one that's takes ownership, and that's tough when you've got none of that around you. And he's probably seen players leave, and we've not replaced it. So I don't know what your take on that is. I'm reluctant to criticise him too much just because of that.
Yeah, I think we've spoken on various different episodes of what we do about the importance of leadership, and we always hark back to the Martin O'Neill example. And everyone here, of a certain age can vouch for Martin O'Neill. Not only had 2, 3, 4 leaders, he had a team full of leaders, and actually you can see it in the amount of guys who have gone on to be managers, coaches, captains from Martin O'Neill's team, and that's from guys like Lenny, Paul Lambert, Johan Mjalby, Sutton, Hartson, all these big figures, Jackie McNamara, big. I don't mean big in terms of stature. I just mean big characters, big personalities. And at the moment in Celtic, I'd say there's probably 3, and it's Callum McGregor, it's Joe Hart, and it's Cameron Carter-Vickers. That's not enough. 3 out of 11 is not enough, which means 8 of your guys aren't leaders. And it doesn't matter if you're playing, in the wing, midfield, whatever. I think we need more personality, and I actually think that's what Brendan Rodgers has been crying out for: physicality and personality. I think he knows the kind of guys he wants. It's another question if he gets those guys in the January window. But again, to take it back to it, the 11 Celtic fielded today should have been capable of dealing with sixth placed Hearts, who have lost the last 2 games. They lost at Pittodrie recently. They get beat by Rangers before that, and we should be more than capable. And I just think we're lacking character throughout the team. I think you're right to defend Callum McGregor in terms of he's not playing particularly well, but he's maybe carrying the can. He's maybe feeling the burden, particularly when Carter-Vickers is sometimes with him, sometimes not. He's a bit in and out during injury. And Joe Hart, I'm a big fan of Joe Hart. I thought he was excellent during the week. He is a goalkeeper on the decline. It's there for all to see. You'll remember the one where in the second half, he could have just come out and plucked out the sky. Lauren Shankland was underneath it, and he panicked and punched it under no pressure. That's a guy who's not sure of himself anymore, and his judgment's going, and things are happening there. So ultimately, sometimes Callum McGregor's the only leader in there, and that's why you see things like you seen today, Asim.
Yeah, he was flapping, and the fans were getting on his back. But I'm like you. I've been a big fan of his. I think he's brought a lot to the club in terms of just personality, leadership, like you say. But we all called this in the summer that we should have been looking at a goalkeeper. So that's what I mean when it stems so much deeper than just the players on the pitch right now and even the management, because this is the recruitment in summer was an absolute shambles, and we all thought it at the time that we'd left ourselves short. We all called it, and it's baffling because this has not been a surprise. We were in balance in terms of experience and in terms of what we lost and then didn't replace, in terms of quality as well. Like you say, it's personality. People like Jota, they had that personality. They had those moments that, Moy was a quiet guy, but he had that personality on the pitch, that experience, that someone you can rely on. And you take all these guys out and bring in, project players and development players. Whether the manager signed off on them or not, we don't know, because there's been mixed messages and all that as well. And I think that's what really makes it all so frustrating and confusing, because he came in the summer, the manager, and said, like, the recruitment strategy and the structure in place, he's been wowed by it and really impressed, and that's why he's came back. And it just doesn't add up. It doesn't add up, because surely he's not came back for this. His reputation is now on the line. he looks lost. He does to me look like somebody who's almost regretting coming back now. And it makes you wonder what is actually going on behind the scenes. Because something's not right, and we've got Hatate to come back and Abada, but the squad that we've got right now is what we're going to have to deal with for the rest of the month. And even then, we all know how difficult it is to really fix and make some big moves in January. So that's where the manager will come under question, because he has to get the best out of these players. And as you say, Hearts weren't even great today. We're not, these teams aren't having to put in absolutely brilliant performances to come away with a very comfortable 2-0 victory. They were not hanging on at any point today.
No.
So yeah, there's a lot to be concerned about.
Yeah, let's get to some of the action then. We'll get back to the bigger picture and the nonsense that is just in a wee bit. Awesome. So yes, I've watched from home today. I've not made it to the game, and you've been in the stadium, so you've maybe had a different angle, a different view to me in terms of the goal. But ultimately, it's another set piece. Celtic are terrified at set pieces at this moment in time, and one of the main reasons is you've got a goalkeeper who remains rooted. Just he does not come and claim. Once you do watch it back, if you can bear doing so, Awesome, you'll see that Lawrence Shankland gets a free header. I think he's got 1 foot on the 6-yard box, so it tells you where he's at. He's 6 yards out. He gets a free header, and he's actually got time to draw himself back and put himself through the head. So it's not like he's had to react. He's got time to say, this is coming to me. I can steady myself and get something behind it. Celtic have been undone by a blocker. So there's 2 Hearts guys, Shankland and one other. And I think it's Liam Scales and Alistair Johnson. And it's hard to fully apportion blame because there's a lot going on. I think it's Alistair Johnson. I think he gets caught and he's unable to make his way back round towards Shankland, and it leaves him free. Certainly between him and Scales, they've got it wrong and they've been out-muscled. Alistair Johnson's not the tallest guy, but he's powerful, he's strong. Yeah. Liam Scales is a big lad, but we've been out-muscled and outdone. And we're seeing it time after time now, aren't we? Motherwell equalised through a corner. There's been another couple recently. It's just that it's a real weakness, for Celtic at this moment in time. And teams are clearly targeting it. They're targeting us in 2 ways. They're targeting Greg Taylor at left back, and why wouldn't you? And they're targeting Celtic in general in terms of whipping corners in across the 6-yard box. And just again, you can't get away with continually going a goal behind in these kind of games, or any game. You're leaving yourself a mountain to climb, and we've just shot ourselves in the foot again, Asim.
Yeah, the set pieces you're right. I think it's the Motherwell game as well. The Johnston, and then again, yeah. So every time the balls come, it's twofold. We're hopeless at set pieces ourselves. We never look like scoring. And any time a ball's coming into our box, you panic and you worry. And yeah, I've seen some comments that basically I think Scales and Johnson were kind of ended up marking each other, and their main threats just left alone for a free header. And as soon as that went in, you could feel the tension in the stadium. In the past when you go a goal down, you're like, right, okay, we can still recover that. Within the first 10, 15 minutes, you just felt a flatness. But as you say, I think that festers. You like the keeper, if he's not given the defence that kind of comfort and assurance and safety, then you see the defence are kind of following suit. So it's any set piece now, you worry about that. And then for the second goal, I don't know what you make of the referee. I don't think the referee was great today again. The amount of times.
Yeah, it would be papering over the cracks, but I'm going to go for it anyway. I thought Kevin Clancy had an absolute shocker. Yeah. I thought Celtic were as poor as we've been. I thought he was as poor a ref as I've seen in a long time as well. He was given every niggly foul Hearts way. He was pulling things back that weren't necessary. Palmer got flagged offside for one that he was clearly onside for in the first half. He was offside for one, but he was on for the other. And the free kick that led to the goal is never a free kick. Yeah. So listen, ultimately, first and foremost, Celtic have been the architects of their own downfall today, but you're not helped with that kind of refereeing. So, yeah, I'll let you pick it back up. But a shocker from Kevin Clancy, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and you'd probably think, okay, there was no kind of major game-changing decisions. Okay, the free kick definitely didn't look it. I've not seen it back, but it didn't look like it was a free kick. Thought it was really soft. But it's just all the wee niggly ones which kind of disrupt the momentum of a game and just play into the hands of the team that's looking to waste time and just break the game up. And every kind of 50-50 was going in their direction. I thought he was really, really poor. But my dad said at the end, and we both kind of said as well, it's not a case of that's why we lost the game. It was just a kind of add-on point that he had a shocker. But yeah, right from I'm trying to think of any kind of clear-cut chances we even had in that first half. I don't remember us creating anything.
You had Greg Taylor's half volley. You had a couple of kind of half efforts from Louis Palmer. But that's the thing, Aston, when you look at it, whether it's first half or the full game, you get those games sometimes every now and then where you do everything right as a team, you actually play fairly well, but you just can't find that goal. Happened a few times under Ange as well. This isn't a new thing, but that wasn't the case today. We weren't chapping the door at any point, and you'd even get in, I think you said either just before we started or maybe after recording here, there was this air of resignation at a very early stage in the game. It wasn't like we went 2-0 down and thought, that's okay, we're Celtic, we can rally and we can get back on track. I never felt at any point that Celtic were going to pull the game with the scruff of the neck and just start peppering their goalie with shots and attempts and crosses. Right up to the whistle, we offered nothing. We didn't deserve it. We got nothing and we deserved nothing.
Yeah, we've gone from we never stop to we never start. I feel like we start games so slowly, and again that's down to that's where again the manager can take the blame, because why are we starting games so passively? There's no intensity to our play. There's no movements. There's no patterns of play. And you're right, as in teams gone by, you always have that confidence when Celtic are down, especially at home. Right, there's going to be a real rally, and we're going to go for it. Literally 60, 65 minutes, I turned around to the guy next to me, and I'm like, "We're this." You could see it in the players, and it almost transcended onto the stands as well. It just went. It went from a kind of really toxic stage to then everyone just kind of went quiet, and it was just like I say, an air of resignation that we're not getting back in this game. And that's a sad indictment. That's our first home defeat in 2.5 seasons, 51 games. I think it's been since I think it might have been St Mirren again in the COVID season, and we just let it go with a whimper. There was no hope whatsoever. Even going into the last 10 minutes, that we might nick a draw. It was a real tough watch. A real tough watch. I've not caught all his interview afterwards. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it. I seen one kind of headline though on Twitter where it was along the lines of he's saying he's not totally surprised, which again is a worrying statement. Yeah, BBC headline. He's saying I'm not being totally surprised. So that's quite ominous when a manager starts saying stuff like that.
It sure is. Yeah, I never seen the interview. I asked him because I was crying in the bath, but that's a different story altogether. Just to bring it back to the first half action. So the free kick, no free kick. But Kingsley stepped up and he's taken it well. I don't think anyone can be blamed for that. The ball was positioned correctly by the looks of it. The goalie just can't get to it. So that's fine. That's just one of those things that happen in football. But then, as I say, you're expecting that real drive and that push to half time. Can we get one back before the break? There was never even a suggestion. And we get to half time. So tell me your own position at the stadium. You must have been crying out for changes. I think most thought Mikey couldn't have returned after the break. That just had to happen. Were you keen to see him replaced first of all, and were the changes the ones that you wanted to see? So it was Turnbull and Mikey go off, and it's and I'll come back to me. I'll check. Let's come on. Maeda, of course. What did you think of the changes? Were they the right changes for you?
Yeah, I think everyone knew that the chances of Mikey coming back out were slim. I wasn't sure about the Turnbull one. Again, a kind of non-performance really from Turnbull, but I'm not going to single out players because it was just collectively terrible. So. Kyogo, I think we got him. I think he had about 4 touches. I think I seen
first half 4 touches.
Yeah, it's baffling how we are not utilising him and how ineffective he's become. Before again, I would kind of put that down to the style of play now, and we're not creating service for him. But you can see he cuts a very frustrated figure now. That even when he's getting on the ball, he's not been effective with it. So I was happy to see O come on because I felt we needed that, and I felt like sometimes the two of them can link up. So it was the 2 changes I probably would have called for at half time, and you're then just hoping for some kind of reaction from that going into the second half.
I was going to leave the Kyogo chat to later on, but I might as well just do it now. There's lots to cover. I put a tweet out. So the chance he missed, the big chance he missed, it was great work by Palmer. This must have been around about an hour into the game, something like that. Palmer gets it on the left, cuts inside, as he almost always does. He rarely goes to the byline, but cuts inside. And to be fair to Palmer, he plays a really cultured pass, one we've seen him make before. It's that kind of backspin pass. It eludes the last defender. It drops perfectly for Kyogo. he's clearly got half an eye on Xander Clark, the goalkeeper, but it's not even like the goalie's coming out like a train. It's all, he could actually have brought it down, he could have headed it, he could have volleyed it. He's done none of the above. He's scummed it by the post. And if anything summed up where Kyogo Furuhashi is right now in his Celtic career, it was that moment. I tweeted at that time and I said, words to the effect of, what has happened to Kyogo Furuhashi? And my phone's absolutely blown up with almost every reply, actually, that I've looked at anyway, has said Brendan Rodgers has happened. Rodgers is a problem. Rodgers this, Rodgers that. Now, it's Rodgers' job, first and foremost, to get the best out of such a talent. He scored, 54 in his first 2 seasons at Celtic, 20 in season 1, 34 in season 2. The guy's a superstar. We know that. He was player of the year at all the awards last season. We know what a talent he is. So first and foremost, as his manager, you've got an obligation, to your team around you to get the most out of him, to say, this is a guy, football's fine if you just want to play nice stuff and never win things. You need a guy at the top end of the pitch to score the goals, because scoring goals is what wins you trophies. And Kyogo's the guy for that. And if we're not playing to that strength, then that's a failing. And I don't know why we're opting not to play to that strength. I don't know if it's if there's a disconnect between Rodgers and Kyogo. I really don't know. But between Rodgers and Kyogo, it's not quite happening. However, to take Rodgers out the equation just temporarily, Brendan Rodgers can't be responsible for Kyogo not finishing that chance. He can't be responsible for Kyogo almost falling over the ball at times in the second half, sclaffing passes, missing the ball. These are all things that aren't working for him. Clearly his confidence is shot, but there's a responsibility on both parts, I think, player and manager. But where are you at in the whole thing?
I agree that he's missed chances and Kyogo's general kind of performance. He has to take responsibility for that. It could just be a spell where he's came off form, but you then question yourself, how has it got to this? And that's where you look at Kyogo earlier in the season, when he scored at Ibrox and Pittodrie and even Tynecastle, he was still scoring goals and good goals that different goals to last year though. If you look at the trademark goal that he was scoring last year, Abada and Maeda or Jota down the line, square ball, that trademark goal that we scored, in the last couple of seasons for Kyogo, it was a lot of creation from our wingers that put things on a plate for him. This year, if you look at some of the goals he was scoring early on in the season, it was his own really, great finishing. The one at Ibrox and Pittodrie spring to mind, like I say, Tynecastle. So I don't think he was totally off form at that point, but gradually we're just not utilising him. He's barely getting involved in the game. He's making runs. You can see him getting frustrated. Our build-up's so slow. So everything that was working so well for us in the previous couple of seasons, we weren't doing, and we're not making the most. We're not getting the most out of our best player. That is then on Rodgers. That is, people have said it. Why has he tried too hard to tweak things that didn't need tweaked? We had Greg Taylor, who was, everyone was saying how brilliant he was last season and in the last couple of seasons. He's now kind of almost reverted to type or what he was like previously. But again, did Rodgers need to tweak what was working well and was getting the best out of some of these players? Because if you look at our squad right now, who's playing better this season than last? Other than maybe Matt O'Reilly, but there's an argument to say that obviously he was playing a lot deeper last year, so that could be why. But our other players, Kyogo, McGregor, Taylor, Johnston, all seem to have regressed. And it begs the question, why?
Yeah, I would agree. Matt O'Reilly's the only one that's progressed, and I'd like to think a lot of that's down to Rodgers. A lot of that, I think, is down to Matt O'Reilly as an individual. You'll have heard him speaking at him. He's a very kind of smart guy, and he's very dedicated in terms of his commitment to his professionalism. He takes the right approach on and off the park by the looks of it. So yeah, he's definitely progressed. I've always backed Rodgers as a guy who makes players better. We've seen it first time around. He made Calmack better, he made Bruni better, he made Stuart Armstrong better, he made James Forrest better. All these guys, KT, and that's not happening this time around, or at least not so far. One of my big issues is we had a system under Ange where we had these inverted fullbacks. So say it's Johnston, Taylor inverting, which allowed your wide guys, Jota, Maeda or whoever, to go really high and wide and try and get around the back of teams, get to the byline and get balls across the face of goal where Kyogo would inevitably finish them off. Now we've gone the other way. We've got more traditional fullbacks and we've got inverted wingers. Every time Louis Palmer gets the ball today, he just comes inside. That's a dream for a defender. If you're a right back, you just say, that's fine. I'll just force you inside to the busy area and you're going to need to do something really special to beat my goalie from there. It's very easy to defend against. Mikey Johnson tried and failed to get to the byline a couple of times, so he then ends up dropping inside, pushing the ball back into the midfield and recycling down that route. It's very easy to defend against, and I know it's simple. Listen, Brendan Rodgers and all these guys, they could tie us in knots tactically, right? Of course, these guys are UEFA A-licensed coaches, they're top of the tree, but sometimes you can see the pattern, and you can see the fact that, a lot of people use the term, teams have found the blueprint to play against Celtic now. And I would agree with that. It's not a particularly complex blueprint. It's just force the wide guys inside, target them at corners, target Greg Taylor, be physical, be imposing, and you might just get something from it. And that's it. That's how simple we are to play against. And it's baffling how we can go from a game at the top level on Wednesday, a challenging game, a tough game against Feyenoord, but Celtic stood up on the night and showed a bit of class, a bit of quality. How you can go from that level on Wednesday night and come crashing back down to what we turned in today, it's really hard to work out.
Yeah, like we said, that's the galling thing of it, is the inconsistencies. It's not even from game to game. It's now it was half to half in the last couple of weekends, and everyone thought after the back of Wednesday night and the nature of the goal last minute that could be the boost and the kick that we needed to turn around the season. Then to start the game again the way we did, you just don't have the belief right now in the faith that this team have got it in them to go on a winning run. The speed of play, that's one of kind of my biggest things that I've noticed. It's far too slow, especially if you look at it domestically. What have teams really struggled to deal with is when we play at high intensity, high tempo, and really go at teams. That's why we were blowing teams away. Now, if we now allow these teams to settle in and it's a slow-paced game and they're allowed just to get into a groove, and then we're chasing games in the second half and we've just not then got the quality to turn it around, it's just, like I say, a recipe for disaster, and that's what we've noticed. Sometimes we'll get away with it like we did at St Johnstone, but a lot of these teams now seem to have us sussed out. For me, I'm looking at the kind of fixtures coming up, and there's no game you go into it, and you hate to be negative, and I know a lot of fans have kind of said it maybe in the last couple of weeks, we're too negative, we're still top of the league. But I think we're right to have been not negative, but we're right to say what we see, which is we could see this coming. Even when you're picking up points, it's not been convincing. It's been a gradual decline in performances, and it's almost now just came to us because you've seen it. We've dropped. I think we've won 2 in the last 5. Domestically, it's just not good enough. And if that carries on, we'll definitely be going into the new year behind, and from a position of 8 points clear, what looked like, I know some people were saying the league was done and stuff like that. It was far too early for all that, given the fact that how inconsistent we've been in terms of performance. So I don't know. I think we'll try and keep balance. Like I said earlier, I don't think it's quite, for me anyway, Rodgers out, but something big needs to happen in January, because as it stands, we're only going in one direction.
Yeah, and as you say, Asim, we're trying not to be knee-jerk, and it's hard not to, because you get that emotionally invested in Celtic. We all do, and anyone tuning in is much the same. And it's, what is it now, nearly 7 o'clock. We're a couple of hours after the final whistle, but it's hard not to let that emotion get the better of you at times. And, people are saying, it's not the time to panic. It's like, when is the time to panic? Should you panic when it's too late? Should you panic when it's done and dusted? Because this has got COVID season vibes all over it. There's real parallels between now and a couple of seasons ago, and we've seen those patterns emerge under Neil Lennon, and people were screaming out for Lenny to go October, November. What was it eventually? February. Too little, too late.
But the only saving grace is, if you look at, we're only at the moment, if the worst case happens, we're 1 point behind if they win the games in hand. That's the only saving grace at this point, because that COVID season, like you say, it was far too late. We were constantly chasing, and by the time the new year came, we all know it was done, and it was just a case of just waiting for the inevitable, and they took so long to do it. At this stage, we're still well in it. It's baffling that we're even having to say that, because, like I said, 2-3 weeks ago, we're 8 points clear. But if they do win their games in hand, we're 1 behind going into a fixture at home against them in the 30s. So if you zoom out, you're like, okay, it's not that bad. But like you say, we have to rectify it now, because it's the trajectory. It's the fact that they seem to be on an up. They seem to have the momentum. And you just want to make sure that this doesn't get any worse, because, as you said, next year, the inaugural, format of the Champions League, and you just don't want to get into that same situation again, that say worst case happens and we don't win the league, then you're back to qualifiers. And then you're back to the same old spiral of, oh, we'll need to wait and see if we qualify before we can spend. And it's just, we've seen it all before. I mean, you don't want to give the board further excuses. So let's get this addressed now while it's still manageable.
Yeah, you're right to say when you zoom out, it's not actually all that bad. But as fans, it's hard to zoom out, isn't it? Because you live and breathe it. You consume Celtic every day, whether it's through, articles or podcasts or go to the games or whatever. Celtic kind of takes over your life, and that's part of it. That's part of being a fan. So it's hard to at times think with that kind of rational head, and you get caught up in the minor detail, and every single thing matters, and that's the whole point. I was just thinking in terms of, what does the conversation look like on Monday morning if Brendan Rodgers and Michael Nicholson are sitting having a chat? Because Rodgers would say, well, first of all, Nicholson might start and say, that wasn't great, Brendan. That's not ideal. 2-0 at home at Hearts. What's the story? And Rodgers would have every right to say, well, hold on a minute. I've had to bring on James Forrest for Greg Taylor in December 2023. That's what's happening. I've had to start Mikey Johnson. That's what's happening. So I think you've said it a couple of times now, and you're bang on. There's lots of things wrong at lots of levels here at Celtic, and that's the bigger picture. I tell you what, I'll go back to some game stuff briefly. We'll finish off with some bigger picture. I forgot to mention, of course, Tony Ralston comes in for Anthony Johnson. Not want to dwell on too much, but Johnson's another talented guy who's out of form. Brendan Rodgers clearly struggling to get the best out of him, and I like Tony Ralston. He's an honest performer, but again, he's not the answer moving forward. Daisen Maeda. A lot of folk, myself included, will have mentioned how much we've missed him in recent weeks, how much of a difference he makes to Celtic's defensive game as well as the offensive game. Mm-hmm. And I'll give him absolute benefit of the doubt stuff for the fact that it's hard to come in rusty. He's potentially been rushed back, given the state of things in the wing areas for Celtic just now. But I'm blown away by some of the poor touches he had today. Ball bouncing over his foot at the sideline, running out. He missed one on the goal line by the looks of it in the last couple of minutes. And somebody made the point, if Daisen Maeda's the answer, who knows what the question is, because I do like Daisen Maeda. I've spoken well of him in recent times, but in the bigger picture, he lacks serious quality. And you used that word, some quality is a thing that Celtic are lacking at this moment in time. And whether it's Bernabei coming off the bench or James Forrest coming off the bench or Daisen Maeda, the quality is just not there at Celtic Park at this moment in time.
What sums it up for me is we're now looking at the likes of Abada and Maeda coming back from injury to rescue our season. Now, these are two guys who, like you said, have done well for us, who I admire some of their qualities, bring a lot to our team. But see, this time last season, it's two positions or two guys that I would have been looking to upgrade on even. So when we had the likes of Jota, Haksabanovic, Maeda and Abada competing for those wing positions, how we'd love to have that option right now. But even back then, I was looking and I was thinking, right, okay, for next season when we're going to try and improve in Europe, I would like us to upgrade on those, because I feel like they bring certain qualities, but they lack in terms of technical ability maybe. So for me, that's what that sums up. Because yes, Maeda, he's got a lot of things he brings to the team, like you said, defensively, his pressing. But we've always known where his deficiencies lie, and now we're kind of looking at the stage of we're needing him and Abada to kind of come in and save our season. But we should still be aiming better. We should still be looking for better quality, and that can be said for every single position right now that we can seriously upgrade on. And we're actually seriously weaker than we were this time last season in nearly every single position, and that's a damning indictment of how just bad the recruitment has been. The Maeda will come in and make us stronger, because it obviously then therefore means that the likes of Mikey Johnson and Forrest. Again, I don't like to single these guys out, because it's not what we were here to do, but it's not their fault. But that's where we're at right now, that we're having to rely on bringing them on or starting them. And it's nearly the end of 2023 and we're still relying on these players who have, over the course of the last couple of years, shown that they're not the answer anymore. So Maeda coming back over the course of the weeks hopefully should improve us. But yeah, today his performance in the second half, like again, I'll cut him slack in the fact it's his first game back in, I don't know, what's it, maybe 4 or 5 weeks or so. But we all know that he's quite erratic sometimes with his final ball and his final product. So it's still an area again that I think we can be looking to improve on, because it's an area that I thought we could have improved on last season.
Yeah, it was just such a disappointing impact from Maida, because I thought half time, let's get him on, let's see what he's got about him, let's see what energy he brings, and you could argue he made us weaker, and that's saying something after the first half that Mikey Johnson gave us. There is something worth watching with Maida. As I say, I'm sure you'll catch it when you watch it back. He gets booked for getting kicked in the knee. The left back clears his lines, follows through and kicks Maida in the knee. The linesman and ref conspire to book the Celtic player. It was absolutely baffling, but by the by, just another thing to moan about. I'd mentioned, of course, that Bernabei comes in. What was that? 62 minutes. He comes on for Palma. Again, is that the answer to all your worries? Your left winger's not doing it, so we'll bring on our backup left back. Somebody joked that it looks like they brought him on mid-haircut. He's halfway through getting his barnet done, and they've just dragged him out the barber's chair and brought him on. But whatever he'd been doing before the game...
That screamed of desperation to me. That screamed of desperation. Bernabei's been nowhere to be seen.
Yeah. It didn't make any sense, and it was just like almost like a to hell with it. We'll see if this works. We'll try this, will we? And to me, that didn't feel like a Brendan Rodgers move. He's quite a calm, considered, calculated guy on the sidelines. You know, he generally thinks quite long and hard about his decisions. We all hark back to that incident at Ibrox where Simunovic had been sent off. What to do? He brings on an extra striker in Edward. The rest is history. Celtic won 3-2. Nothing like that today. So Bernabei was deemed to be the answer. That aside, there's not a great deal more to cover in terms of any action or flashes. O didn't do much when he came on. There was a lack of urgency. As you say, there was then tension between players. There was players clearly falling out. And what certainly came through loud and clear were the chants of sack the board, Lawwell get to wherever you want to get to, and all these kind of things. And there's this tension now in the stadium. There's this disconnect between the club and the fans. And I've said it before, listen, whether you're a Green Brigade fan or not, it's not really my point here, whether you support the Green Brigade and want them back in. But you should certainly want the Celtic fan base to be united. And at this moment in time, for various reasons, we're not. And I'm not saying that excuses some of the performances from the players. They've got a job to do as professionals. But it doesn't make it a good place to be. You'll see, and you'll probably use terms like toxic environment. And that can't be healthy. And it certainly can't be conducive to try and roar Celtic onto another league title.
No. Well, we spoke about it before on a couple of the pods as well, just about the Green Brigade stuff, and there's no denying that it's harming us. In terms of just even atmosphere at these home games, it's flat. There's no energy in the stadium. It's definitely when normally when you're a goal behind, you have that to kind of rely on, and everyone can get up for it and stuff like that. None of that at all today. It's just definitely it was a toxic atmosphere in the stands. There's no other way to describe that today, and it's you'd like to have thought that this would have been resolved by now, but of course, like you say, the players are still going to do a job on the pitch. But Brendan said it last time, when Celtic are at their best, when everyone's in the one direction, pulling in the one direction, and that kind of trinity between the board and the fans and the management and players, everything. There's none of that just now. There's such a disconnect, even at the end when the players are going around doing their, as they go around at the end of the pod and the fans. It was boos. There was you could see it. There was anger. So things are just not in a good place, and you just wonder, do the board care? I don't know, because they seem so passive with it all. You've seen the AGM a few weeks ago. It's all just patting themselves on the back. Any kind of tough questions? Are they willing to listen? Are they willing to take action? It doesn't seem like it. And for me, that's where I kind of you try and separate the issues, because every issue, every part of things right now is going wrong. But for me, it does stem deeper than just Brendan Rodgers, because I know right now that's a lot of the flack's aimed at. To be honest, the split, the board are getting it tight as well, and there was a chance you could hear them loud and clear. But people that are saying, "Oh, get Rodgers out," that's not going to fix things on its own, because the problems are higher up than that, in my opinion.
Yeah, they're far deeper rooted, and it's the kind of thing we'll dig into it in our weekly show on Monday night and just try and find some of the answers. I'm not sure we'll find the solutions, but we'll certainly debate them. The key issue shorter term, Aston, is these 3 games before the turn of the year. So as we start to head to the end of this episode, let's take a look ahead. We've got Livingston on Saturday coming, the 23rd. We've then got Dundee away on Boxing Day, 26th, and obviously the big game against Rangers on the 30th. So just in short, if you can, what do you think is required to get the right results in these next 3 games? And also, has Brendan Rodgers ruined Christmas?
100%. Like how many times have we now come away from these games in the last couple of weekends, and it ruins your mood. Santa got booed at halftime as well today when he came out.
Yeah, he's at fault too.
The games, when we looked at the fixtures in December, we thought, you look at the fixture, we came through a harder run of fixtures unscathed earlier in the season, and everyone was looking forward to this part of the season because it was a reversal. Our challengers had their tougher run of away fixtures, and we've absolutely just blown it. Like, we've imploded in terms of the points we've dropped. But I was looking to have won maximum points this month and gone into that fixture at the end with at least the status quo, or we're hoping to increase our lead. Instead, we're looking at the likelihood of going into it behind. We have to win these next 2 games going into that. It cannot get any worse.
Yeah.
2 very, again, winnable fixtures, but as they all are, and as they all should be. But it just feels like no game right now has that air. Livingston at home next week, you couldn't have handpicked probably a better fixture to try and get 3 points against. I'm not sure what their score was today, but they're obviously in a kind of really bad run of form. So yeah, in terms of team selection, obviously we'll dive into that near the time and stuff. But right now, you can't even look that far ahead because you're still digesting all of this, and you're normally you just want the next game to come around as soon as possible. But I don't even feel like that right now. That's how much of an apathy and a disconnect there is right now. And again, I hate to be negative because and I know you're the same, Tino. We try and keep balance, and you try and put a positive spin on things, but sometimes you just have to call it how you see it. And this is not just a one-off. This has been a month of pretty shambolic performances. So I think what needs to happen is, you've got a couple of players hopefully needing fitness again. So, Maeda will come into it, and we just need to try and get a reaction. But we've said this, without repeating myself, we've said this for the last few games where, okay, we need to see a reaction now. And it seems like it lasts maybe a game, and then it returns to type. So let's see what happens this week. We've got a full week, no midweek game. And like I say, we've got a kind of favourable fixture. It's Livingston next at home, so it's a game that, again, we should be winning. But yeah, we just have to come out all guns blazing. You just want to see something. You want to see some fight, which I thought we seen in midweek against Feyenoord, which is why this becomes so frustrating, because you see it for a game and then you see that today. So I don't know about you. I don't know what your kind of thoughts are going into that game and how you see things panning out.
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world for me, we'd have a game as soon as we'd have a midweek game, and we could go on with that, and that would allow us to regroup. I'm not sure what the atmosphere will be like at Lennoxtown this week. I think there'll be, if you're Lager Bielka, just for an example, are you too happy about things? You've been here on Wednesday, sky high, and then back to being out the squad. You've got Palmer getting taken off for Bernabe, a left back. You've had Turnbull who's in and out. You've got Kyogo who's fed up. I'm just not sure how good the mood in the camp will be. What you seen under Ange often, you see the footage from the official club channels or the photography that would come out on a Friday before a game on a Saturday. Generally looked like the mood in the camp was good. You can't quite say that this time around, and I don't know. I don't know how Brendan Rodgers manages that. That's his job. This is why he's so well paid. I think he's the most expensive, or the best paid manager in Scottish football history. It's absolutely time that he earns that. Now, I appreciate that he's not got the players he wants, and he wants four more quality players that he might get in January, he might get in the summer, he might not get at all. We don't know how this board operates, but regardless if he gets them or not, his job first and foremost is to coach the players that are there to optimise their skill set and get the best out of them. And at the moment, he's not doing that, or whatever he is doing. He's certainly coaching, but his coaching methods aren't working at this moment in time. So there's the first challenge. Well, January will come soon enough. We'll get to the window and we'll see what happens in terms of new guys coming in. But you've got 3 huge games before that. And yep, Livy are at the bottom of the pile. They should be a good fixture for us. But you mentioned earlier on, Aston, no fixtures are given for Celtic right now. So there's a challenge. Just in its simplest form, do the cliched football thing and just treat the next game as your most important one. We'll see if we can get 3 points against Livy and we can kick on from there. So what we'll do, Aston, we're approaching there. It's probably been enough moaning for one night from the two of us. Yeah. So just your final thoughts as we start to wrap things up.
Yeah, just to try and end on some positive note. Look, we're, despite an absolutely horrendous run of form, we are still top of the table at this stage. We've got a manager who's been there before, who's seen us through. And, you know, I remember in his final season, or I think even the second, but definitely the final season, that I think they beat us near the end of the year, and it took it to maybe level points, and everyone went into the winter break thinking, right, okay, he's got a title challenge, and they're coming strong. And we normally come out of the winter breaks really strong in his kind of tenure. I remember all 3 seasons, but you just have to kind of hope he can bring back some of that, Rodgers, you know. And, you know, I thought in the last couple of weeks in his press conferences, not this week, but the last 2 before, we've seen a bit of spikiness and a bit of passion coming out from him. And I like to see that. I wanted to see that from him. And then again, it kind of went back to a bit passive in the more recent ones. So let's hope he's as angry as we are. But let's hope he also takes a bit of accountability and responsibility. And he did, I think, in his interview. Again, one of the headlines I've seen, they asked him a question, something like, you know, is this on the board or is this on? And he said, no, it's on me and the players. It's on the management and the players. So you know, he's obviously going to come out and say that, but we'll see what he's really made of. You know, he's came in with this reputation. You know, we all said at the time, as much as people were unsure about whether it's good to bring him back or not, by and large, once he was back in the door, people kind of were of the opinion, right, he's probably the best manager we could have got. It's time for him to show that. It's time for him to really now prove it, and just kind of get everyone back in song and just kind of get everyone firing again, because boy, do we need that. We need a boost, and we need everyone to kind of be pulling in the right direction again. So let's hope that's what we can see in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, here's hoping. And you're right, you know, it's one thing for us to come on here and we as supporters and everyone who's joined us here and anyone who tunes in, like, of course we're hurting because it means so much. I don't doubt that Brendan Rodgers isn't hurting at this moment in time as well. Listen, you can debate how genuine a Celtic fan is or not, but I think he's a professional and he cares about what he does. He cares passionately about, you know, the role that he has at Celtic Park and what he brings to the party. And he'll be feeling this one. And I hope he can, as you say, you know, find the positive solution. I know you spoke to him recently at one of the pressers, and I thought he gave a great answer. You asked him about recruitment, and he was very positive, and he articulates well, and that's, you know, a big strength of his. I've had a bit of grief from Miff on our show because I was calling him Spiky Brendan the other week, and I like Spiky Brendan. I like him when he gets a wee bit of the bit between his teeth and he starts to get a wee bit animated, because that's the fire in the belly that you need to be a Celtic manager. So I'm hoping that he can go and do what he's good at.
The only thing I'll say to that, Tino, is when we last seen Spiky Brendan, it was towards the end when Terminado, and you know, before we knew it, he was away. This time it's came about early, and we just hope it's what's going to cause the turning point rather than the end of it all. But, well, we don't know. So, like, for a lot of fans, that wouldn't be the worst thing at this stage. But, you know, we just need things to kind of turn. We need things to turn, and we need things to turn quickly. So, yeah, let's hope so. Because, yeah, you know, as we're saying, we're still in this title race. It's a title race now, which it shouldn't have been. But you know, we're still well in it, so there's plenty of time to try and rectify things.
Yeah, there is, and let's hope Spiky Brendan doesn't become sacked Brendan anytime soon. Awesome, thanks as always for joining us. Real pleasure despite the result. Thanks to everyone who's joined us on the YouTube live. Thanks as always for your comments. If you are watching on YouTube, please do us a favour by liking and subscribing. If you're listening to the podcast version, please follow and review the show if you get a chance. But in the meantime, for myself and Azam, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back on Monday night with the weekly show. Until then, if you possibly can, please enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see you soon.